Hello, welcome to Jake Talks. I'm your host, Jake Braccino, and today we will be exploring the COVID-19 pandemic's effect on one of the largest welfare programs in Salem, the Salem Keizer Public Schools. Like everyone else in the world, the COVID-19 pandemic hit Salem Keizer hard. School closures have made life more difficult for pretty much everybody involved. To get more perspective of the matter, I talked to an expert who has followed how Salem Keizer schools have reacted to COVID-19.
My name is Natalie Pate. I'm the education reporter for the Statesman Journal in Salem, Oregon. It's fair to say that they responded the way a lot of school districts felt like they needed to. The first thing was, okay, we're going to need to prepare for students to be home for a little while, and they were following the governor's timeline.
Salem Keizer was trying to create long-term plans, but with the sprawling nature of the pandemic, that wasn't really possible.
Like everyone else, they were just making these decisions day to day, sometimes hour by hour. But it started initially with we're going to close schools down and wait until we have the clearance to reopen.
I talked to a Salem Keizer teacher about the effects on teaching.
I'm Warren Trotter at South High. I teach upper division math, calculus, college algebra.
At the onset of the pandemic, Salem Keizer closed down for a week before spring break, initially hoping to be back 3 weeks later after the end of spring break. That didn't happen.
We got the word that we're not coming back at all until perhaps the fall. And then we will wait to see what happens over the summer. Then the next step came and hit is, we have certain requirements and goals to meet with the students. How's that going to work? Because we are not used to this online. We have no equipment to deal with it. Pretty much nobody knew what Zoom was. We had no idea what Canvas is or was. We didn't know about using the camera on your computer. We didn't know about all of the internet problems. We didn't know about how to handle mute buttons and et cetera, and not talking over us because you can't hear more than one person at a time. None of that. So we had no idea how to run a classroom. None whatsoever.
After a train wreck of a semester, the Salem Keizer Public Schools and the Oregon Department of Education had the summer to plan for what the fall semester of 2020 would look like. They came up with a plan for remote learning and a plan for returning to in-person learning whenever the Oregon Health Authority decided it was safe. Though seniors were able to have a remote graduation in September, COVID-19 cases spiked in Oregon in the late summer, and classes in the fall were to remain online.
And we got around to September, and that we had a plan. So they implemented Canvas.
Canvas is a web-based learning management system.
So we put all of our assignments and other things on Canvas. So now you had an organized place to put things, organized place for grades. Kids could log in. And now we had Zoom working.
To understand more fully what distance education in the Salem Keizer Public Schools look like, I talked to a student of the Salem Keizer Public Schools.
Yeah, I'm Dante Grodives, 12th grade, and I go to South Salem High School. There were Zoom calls, right? And you'd have to log into the Zoom call, and that was kind of it, right? So you'd know basically what you're going to do on Canvas. You'd see if I have to do the work for the class or if it's a lecture and stuff, and then you decide how you're going to interact with the class based off that. And most of the time it was kind of a tune in, listen into it while you're kind of doing stuff.
Even with everyone getting a better handle on distance learning, there were still a lot of challenges.
It's still very difficult to become as engaged with a class while you're doing it as distance. And I know so you just wake up in the morning, right? And obviously your first class is in the morning, and you're in your bed on your computer, and there's no way to check or anything. So there's the temptation to just fall asleep is insurmountable.
I asked Dante about what he felt were the main challenges of distance learning.
It's just not having school as a structure is really different because I was very involved with like clubs and sports in school. So usually my day would look like getting to school at 7 and staying till around 7 at school doing things.
School obviously is there to educate kids, but its critical functions are far broader than that. It's a relatively safe space for kids to interact with each other and develop critical social skills. I talked to Dante's father about the broader impacts of distance learning on families.
Hi, my name is Jason Greenwood. I am a parent of 2 students in the Salem Keizer School District. We've had tons of problems throughout our close group of community. We've had a lot of depression in the children. There's been a lot of suicidal thoughts. There's loneliness. There's isolation. The children don't want to learn by themselves. The children are not okay with being by themselves. And I mean, we're all human. We all need human interaction, but children especially. And they've all really suffered from this.
There's definitely been times that it's weighed on me that I haven't like spoken to anyone or seen anyone. And
Salem Keizer schools do reach out and offer resources to help manage mental health and social isolation, but it's proved difficult to effectively help students virtually.
I think they're reaching out as best as they can. The problem is that the needs. I feel like the needs and the problems that are structured with the pandemic can't really, like, the people are already going to cope with it in the ways that are present, like they're going to talk with their friends via virtual means and such. And I think just the nature of the way that the pandemic is, the limitations mean that there's not really effective help that can be offered.
Trying to convince a kid to open up to an adult is hard enough. Trying to convince them to do it to a brand new adult in private with that adult sitting right there is even harder, and trying to do it over Zoom is nearly impossible. So to answer your question, no, we haven't used any of those resources. The school has reached out and has tried to push our children to interact with the teachers, and the school has done a very valiant effort in trying to get our children to interact, but it is something that I think is not cohesively possible in our current state.
The role of teacher has vastly shifted during the pandemic. As Jason was saying, schools are trying to get students to interact with teachers more, but it is extraordinarily difficult for teachers to stay in the same role helping students as they have in the past.
For my kids that I tend to deal with, the interactions that I don't think they got were the little subtle things that seem trivial, but they make a world of difference. For example, I would have Thursday afternoon pizza, and then I had a group of 5 to 10 kids, and they would all just line up and grab 1 or 2 slices until all the pizza was gone. And they would just hang out for a little while. And when you have that kind of environment where it's safe, friendly, social, questions come up. Like, what do you think about this major? Or what do you think about this scholarship? Or they'll talk to their buddy about something. Or what university? How do you fill out this resume? Or etc. So that wasn't happening.
In addition to helping with general life questions, teachers play a huge role in getting students help for issues like food insecurity, homelessness, and child abuse.
Teachers are key players in identifying students who need help. And a lot of time that means, maybe they're couch surfing. They don't have permanent shelter and they need resources. And referrals for that to the district's department that handles that were way down during remote learning. Same thing goes with child abuse reporting and domestic violence reporting. We saw the referrals go down at the pandemic, which as a data point sounds nice, right? Like referrals went down. That must mean there's less abuse. And, but of course experts pointed that's not good. We want referrals to be up because we know it's happening. We just don't always know when and where. And referrals are helping us find that and identify that. And when teachers can't see students and check in with them without a parent right next to them, or, things like that, it makes it really hard for them to gauge if that child's in a safe position or to catch those red flags.
For the kids who have problems at home or in their own lives, because they will come to school and that can be their safe place. They're fed, they're warm, they're safe. And when they're in that environment, they will generally seek out help. So those kids weren't getting that help. So that was a big blow to that population.
In March 2021, Governor Brown signed an executive order mandating that Oregon public schools must reopen for in-person or hybrid learning by mid-April.
So on March 2nd, Tuesday, March 2nd, kindergartners and first graders started again. On March 9th, grades 2 and 3 started again. And on March 16th, grades 4th and 5th started again. Now, of course, the focus was on the youngest students are the ones who they argued needed the most one-on-one attention and, those foundational learning skills, the importance of being in person. So even with those, they were still in cohort. So the cohorts were split into Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday, Friday. So you either went on Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday. Monday is reserved as a student support day. That's also reserved time for teacher prep, things like that.
For schools returning to in-person classes, the Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Health Authority released and continually updates a comprehensive 88-page-long blueprint of COVID-19 protocols called Ready Schools, Safe Learners.
Everyone had to wear face coverings. As soon as you got onto campus, there was hand sanitizer pumping going on everywhere. Having tape around the desks so where the desks need to be to make sure that they are spaced out correctly. Meal delivery for people who get breakfast and lunch at school.
So there are a lot of protocols in place. I asked Dante if all of these protocols for reopening made him feel safe to go to class in person.
I personally feel quite safe, but I've been vaccinated for a while, and if I wasn't vaccinated, I think that if you're doing just the school part of it, and you yourself are consciously following the guidelines, I think it's structured well enough that you can be very safe. There are people who aren't obviously following the guidelines as strictly, so you'll see groups of people who are not 6 feet apart and are talking in a group. But if you yourself are following the guidelines, it is not difficult to stay 6 feet apart, keep your mask on, and pretty much everyone I've seen that's at least my school is wearing their mask.
Yeah. With the COVID-19 protocols in place and the incredible difficulty with distance learning, everyone I interviewed felt that the return to hybrid and in-person learning was an immense improvement.
Compared to what we did in March and April and May and June, there's no comparison. There really isn't. What we're doing this year is a school. Kids are learning, definitely, but we're definitely behind. But it's not like we're 90% behind. If I were to guess, it's probably 20% behind.
If it would have been possible at the time, I would have loved to go to in-person school as soon as possible. Yeah, I think that in-person education is so much better for actually learning than non. And so in an ideal world, I would have liked to have been able to go back to have at least what we have now of in-person class.
So what should we take away from all of this? Personally, I take away from the interviews that in-person education is critically important and that getting kids back into classes needs to be a top national priority during the COVID-19 pandemic and really any natural disaster. For kids, missing education is bad, but the social isolation is worse. Missing in-person classes means that kids don't get to interact with their peers. And it also means that they don't get to interact with teachers who play an especially important role in our kids' lives. They offer life advice and they report child neglect. Kids need structure to thrive, and distance learning, with all of its challenges, does not provide that needed structure. Hopefully, Salem Keizer Public Schools and other school districts across the country can continue to safely move towards in-person classes to provide the much-needed structure and support that children and their families need.